The NFL season is officially here and the wait is finally over. This was a very eventful offseason to say the least, as the Titans now have their hopeful franchise quarterback in Cam Ward, Sam Darnold is now a Seahawk after having the best year of his career, and Aaron Rodgers is a Pittsburgh Steeler. And heading into every NFL season, there are expectations for each and every team. We know who is more likely to go to the Super Bowl than others, and we know which teams are more likely to be selecting in the top 5 of the 2026 NFL Draft than others. And in today's video, we're going to break down 4 bold predictions for the 2025 NFL season. There will be a handful more that we go over at the end of the video, and I encourage you to comment below any bold prediction you have ahead of the 2025 season. And remember, these are bold predictions for a reason. I don't think anybody in their wildest dreams would have said heading into last year that the Washington Commanders would go to the NFC Championship game in Jaden Daniels' rookie year, or that the 2024 NFC North would have 2 14-win teams for the first time in NFL history. So if you have a bold prediction, by all means, let it rip. And there's a lot to break down in today's video, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video by discussing the team that just had the number 1 overall pick in the Tennessee Titans. And the prediction here is that they either win the division or finish with 6 wins or less, and head coach Brian Callahan is fired at the end of the year with pretty much no in between. There's a big variance here for the Titans because I don't think this is a particularly bad roster, but I don't think it's a great roster either. And we've said this before on the channel, but you don't accidentally stumble into the number 1 overall pick. You may accidentally have a 5-win season when you were projected an 8 or 9-win season, but not the worst record in the league with 32 teams in the said league. And the reason Tennessee could finish with 6 wins or less and that head coach Brian Callahan could be fired is if the Titans do not start out hot, you could see the team start to play for me rather than we and make business decisions as early as mid to late October. And not only that, but one of my biggest frustrations with the Titans last year was how undisciplined they were at times. If you're a bad football team and you go into the link to play the Eagles and lose, oh well, it happens. But for Tennessee to be one of only 3 teams last year to have both 130 plus penalties as well as over 1,000 yards in penalties is not good for a team in a new regime. And if that does not get cleaned up, then there's going to be a game or two this year where you look up and wonder how they lost. And I think that can be viewed as a direct reflection on the coaching staff. And if that does not get cleaned up, like we mentioned, this isn't a bad team, but it's not an elite team either, and they can have a 5 or 6 win season, and pretty quickly you'd look up and think Brian Callahan is 8-26 or 9-25 through 2 years, and we have a very undisciplined football team on top of it, and we'd rather not chance it with Cam Ward, so let's just go ahead and bring in a new head coach and start over. Now, on the flip side of this, the win the division part, well, the biggest thing here with the 2025 Titans compared to the 2024 Titans is not making mistakes the way they did last year. The first part of that, of course, is not having an all-time bad special teams unit. And for reference, the Titans lost to the Lions last year with a score of 52-14, and the Lions had 225 yards of offense despite putting up over 50 points. The Titans also had 4 turnovers, but their special teams allowed multiple big returns within this game, and they set themselves up to fail from the start. Tennessee also had 34 turnovers in 2024 as a team, and obviously you know the big or the meme ones from Will Levis, but even with those turnovers from Levis, I kind of ask the question, how much different do we view the 2025 Titans if they started out 2-0 last year with wins over the Bears and Jets instead of losing in the manner they did? Now, they wouldn't have drafted Cam Ward, of course, but my point is, this is a solid team that missed opportunities last year. And the AFC South is also not a great division. This team did not send 3 teams to the playoffs last year like the AFC West did, and heading into 2023, nobody would have thought the Texans would have went from the number 2 pick in the draft to winning a playoff game in CJ Stroud's rookie year. Admittedly, I do worry about the start of the Titans' schedule as they have 4 road games in their first 6 games of the year, but, and this is a big but if they can go 3-3 through this stretch, the schedule gets easier as the season progresses, and I also don't think they're going to have a minus 16 turnover margin this year and an all-time bad special teams unit again. But I'm also not the biggest Brian Callahan guy, and that's largely why I think there's a good reason there's a lot of variance with the 2025 Titans. Now, if there is one thing about me I love, it's eating. I don't eat to live, I live to eat. Whether it's steak, burger, chicken, pizza, crabs, because I do live in Maryland, you name it, I love it. And that's why I'm excited to tell you guys about today's sponsor, HelloFresh. HelloFresh recently doubled the size of their menu to offer 100+ recipes each week, and they're also offering bigger portions, twice as many healthy options, and 15+ high-protein recipes every week. And like I said, I live to eat, and the white cheddar crunch burger with griddled onion, potato wedges, and smoky mustard was phenomenal, and I personally think that a bun can make or break a burger, and HelloFresh didn't disappoint because they had the filet mignon of buns in a brioche bun, and this meal was absolutely phenomenal, and I couldn't recommend it enough. Now, I did have a hard time choosing which meals to select from this week, so I went with the white cheddar crunch burger, a barbecue pineapple flatbread, and a creamy cilantro steak bowl, all of which were phenomenal, by the way. I loved each meal, and HelloFresh has step-by-step directions, so they're easy to follow. So take advantage of the new HelloFresh by using my code GFBFM at HelloFresh.com to get 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. 1 free meal per box with active subscription, free meals applied as discount on first box, new or returning subscribers, and a big thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. The next bold take is that the Chicago Bears finished last in the NFC North, but the process of the 25 Bears offense looks really good throughout the year, and one thing that I do want to preface with this part of the video is we just concluded the 2025 NFL Team Preview Series. Appreciate everyone who watched, by the way, and you may think that, hey, you just released a video a week and a half ago about the Bears titled, "I'm buying in with the Chicago Bears again," and the thumbnail caption was "New Beginning," and while I am buying in with the Chicago Bears process, I don't think that they're going to go 15-2 this year or 14-3, and I was pretty adamant in the video that I think their team ceiling is a divisional round exit, and I also prefaced in the video of the Bears team preview that I don't think they're going to win the NFC North this year. I do not think this team is better than the Detroit Lions. I do not think they're better than the Minnesota Vikings or Green Bay Packers either. But what I do want to hammer home is that they made a lot of changes this offseason. Now, everybody gets the joke about the Bears being offseason champions, but they brought in Joe Thuney, they brought in Drew Dahlman, and they brought in Jonah Jackson to protect Caleb Williams along the interior offensive line, and to also help the run game out as well, going up the middle and inside zone, as Ben Johnson likes to call. So what I want to preface this part here is that while I do think the Bears are going to finish last in the NFC North, I would be absolutely shocked if you're not going to see improvements from not just Caleb Williams, but really everyone in the offense in 2025. And what I think still needs to be remembered about Caleb Williams' rookie season is he still had over 3,500 yards passing and 20 passing touchdowns to just 6 interceptions. He didn't put the ball in harm's way a lot, and obviously there were a lot of moments that Caleb wishes he could have back from last year, and there were certainly not just one, but multiple sacks that wore on him throughout the 2024 season that I do think Ben Johnson will coach out of him over time, but all things considered, there was still a lot of positives to take away when you factor in all of the environmental factors within Caleb Williams' 2024 rookie season, whether it was nobody watching tape with him, or the offensive line at times being a disaster, and yes, I also acknowledge that some of Caleb Williams' 68 sacks that he took last year were certainly on him, as no offensive line gives up 68 sacks per year without ever one being on the quarterback, and that was especially true in Caleb Williams' case. But one thing I want to hammer home is the Bears' schedule this year is extremely difficult, and that's due in large part as to why I think they're going to finish last in the NFC North. And when your road schedule is, of course, going to be the Lions, Packers, and Vikings for each team in your division, well, it's as if that's not enough, they also have to go on the road to play Philly, Washington, Baltimore, and Cincinnati, and San Francisco for that matter too. So that is going to be one of the most difficult road schedules out of any team in the NFL this year, and I don't think the Bears are going to have a 4-4 record in those road games, and it'll probably be 2-6 or 3-5, and inevitably that's going to affect your record in the long run. So due to all of this, I think the Bears are going to finish last in the NFC North, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if they finish 8-9, but the bottom line is there's going to be a lot more positives to take away this year, and that Ben Johnson is implementing a big culture change, and that the process is going to look a lot better in 2025 for Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. And the main point that I do want to hammer home is that I am buying in with the Chicago Bears process and everything that they're going to do over 2025 and 2026, and I really like all the moves they made this offseason, but that schedule, not just for the Bears, who finished 5-12 last year, but even for the Eagles to have that type of road schedule would be brutal. So I don't think the Bears are going to have 11 or 12 wins this year, but they are going to gradually get better over the course of the season, and I can't wait to see how this team plays in 2025. Next up is the New England Patriots making the playoffs, and I think this happens for a few reasons. The Patriots were ranked 30th in offensive DVOA last year and were dead last in rushing DVOA. They also finished 30th in points in 2024, and their offensive line was abysmal. And there were times last year where both Jacoby Brissett and Drake May were set up to fail, and whenever the Patriots selected Drake May at number 3 overall, and especially when you looked at the supporting cast for a 22-year-old rookie quarterback, well, I was hoping they let Drake May sit for the majority, if not all of his rookie year. And the biggest thing the Patriots did this offseason to help out their young quarterback was to give him an offensive line that raises the floor. Now, full transparency, I don't think the Patriots are going to go from having one of the worst offensive lines in one offseason to having one of the best offensive lines in one offseason, but they took several steps in the right direction, and that doesn't factor in the improvement in coaching and the improvement with the rest of the roster for that matter too. They also lost a few games they probably shouldn't have last year, and with the sheer improvements they made to this roster alone, is plural multiple wins better from where they were last year. And there was a point within the 2024 season where the Patriots had an undrafted free agent center on Quinnen Williams, and that went about as exactly as you'd expect. I really loved what the Patriots did in the draft this year, and really liked the running back duo in Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson, and am considerably excited for this duo to get going in 2025. Stephon Diggs will turn 32 and is coming off of a torn ACL, and that of course has to be noted, but he is still a savvy route runner and a guy that can get open at a much higher rate than what a lot of Patriots receivers did last year. Kyle Williams is an exciting third-round pick and a player who I think will make several splash plays throughout the 2025 season. And I am also excited for rookie Efton Chisholm, who I think can legitimately contribute to this team too. They also spent over $100 million on defensive lineman Milton Williams in free agency, and brought in linebacker Robert Spillane too, who I think has been an underappreciated player for the Raiders over the past few years. But another big reason as to why I think this team can make the playoffs is their schedule is not that difficult. It's not easy, of course, as no NFL schedule is easy, but they don't have a 3-game stretch where they play Kansas City and Buffalo on the road and then come home to play Baltimore. And they can set the tone within the 2025 season pretty quickly because their first 4 games are home against the Raiders, at Miami, home against the Steelers, and home against the Panthers. And I ask the question, do you truly think New England can't win any of those games? And the answer is no, and as crazy as this sounds, the 2025 New England Patriots can start out 4-0. Now, I don't think they will, as like with the Titans, I don't think this roster is a great roster, but I certainly don't think it's awful either. I am a huge believer in Drake May, and I think they have their franchise quarterback, and they did a lot to help him out this offseason, and I think it'll pay off very soon. The Patriots do play the Bills in Buffalo in Week 5, and I think they will lose that game, but after that they play at New Orleans, then go to Tennessee, and then come home to play Cleveland. And when those are your first 8 games, is a 6-2 start unreasonable? No, and if 10 wins gets you into the dance, then I don't think there's any reason the Patriots can't make the playoffs this year. Next up is the Seattle Seahawks to win the NFC West, and I know you may be thinking that a team that won 10 games last year to win their division is not all that bold of a take, but I did check multiple sportsbooks before making this video, and the Seahawks had the lowest odds of winning the NFC West out of any of the 4 teams. So why I think the Seahawks can win the division this year is pretty simple. I thought they upgraded the roster substantially this offseason, both in free agency and throughout the NFL draft, and they were one of 3 teams to receive an A+ draft grade for the 2025 draft, and I loved not only the Greg Zabel selection, but I also love the Nicky Manwari, Elijah Arroyo, Torrey Horton selection, who I do believe will be a draft steal for them over the course of time, though Cooper Kupp may initially eat into some of Torrey Horton's targets. But pertaining to the 2025 Seahawks, Cooper Kupp, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Torrey Horton will be a solid receiving trio, and not only that, but with the selection of Greg Zabel, that's going to emphasize running the football more with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, and the Seahawks are going to do everything they can to make Sam Darnold's life easier in 2025. Now, one big thing about Sam Darnold as we enter the 2025 season is we all know his lasting image right now. The Week 18 game against the Lions, in which the Vikings put up 9 points with not just the NFC North on the line, but also the 1 seed on the line, and then 8 days later on Monday night in the wildcard round against the Los Angeles Rams, a team that Sam Darnold will now have to play twice a year, and a team that the Seahawks will presumably have to beat to win the NFC West. He also did not play well and effectively played like a pumpkin, and you get the point. The Vikings went from winning 14 winning games in their first 16 games of 2024 to putting up a combined 18 points in the final 2 games of the 2024 season, obviously including the wild card round game within that. But what I think gets forgotten about with Sam Darnold is this was a player who threw for over 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns last year, and more often than not, obviously excluding the Week 18 game, wild card game, and even a weird Jacksonville game in which Darnold threw a couple of interceptions, Sam Darnold was a very, very good player for most of the 24 season. You don't accidentally stumble into 14 wins in the NFL. That does not happen. There's franchises that haven't won 14 games in a season, let alone Sam Darnold winning 14 games as his first year with the Minnesota Vikings. So what I do want to emphasize is that he was not that player for most of 2024. And again, you don't accidentally finish 10th in MVP voting the way Sam Darnold did last year. There were several high-level throws that Darnold made throughout the 24 season, and believe it or not, it was not just, hey, let's just throw it up, Justin Jefferson is down there somewhere. Darnold was a game-changing player, again, for most of the 2024 season, and I think that he can lead this team to 10 or 11 wins in 2025, maybe 12 wins, because the Seahawks schedule is not all that difficult. Now, the way that the schedule works is you play divisions within your schedule. So you may play the NFC East this year if you are the Seattle Seahawks, or you may play the AFC North, or whatever the case may be. That's how the scheduling works, right? But the way that it rotated around this year is the Seahawks play the NFC and AFC South. So they get to play the Bucks, Falcons, Saints, and Panthers, and then obviously the Titans, Colts, Jags, and Texans. That is a lot different than potentially having to go to Baltimore and then come home the next week to play the Cincinnati Bengals and have Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow in back-to-back weeks, where you may get a division team from the AFC South and then the NFC South, and needless to say, that's a lot better of a matchup for Seattle. So whenever you factor everything in, this is a team that won 10 games last year. They had one of just 3 A+ draft grades I handed out, and they also brought in Cooper Kupp and DeMarcus Lawrence in free agency to improve the receiving unit and improve their ability to get after the quarterback. I also think second-year defensive tackle Byron Murphy takes a big step, and when you look at the philosophy of a Mike Macdonald defense, which is to make the opposing quarterback uncomfortable and then to throw a bevy of coverages at you throughout the game, this is going to be a very difficult team to beat. Now, I don't think Seattle's going to win the Super Bowl this year, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if they win the NFC West, and there's legitimate reason to believe that heading into the 25 season. Two other takes I do want to acknowledge here is CeeDee Lamb leading the NFL in receiving yards, as I think for Dallas to be able to put up points consistently, they're going to have to throw the ball a lot, and it's because I really don't trust their run game. And even within this, I think George Pickens could go for 11 or 1,200 receiving yards, and that Dak Prescott could throw for 5,000 yards for the first time in his career. Now, full transparency, this video is being recorded before the Cowboys-Eagles game and being released after, so this could age like fine wine or like milk, though I would argue on either side, no matter if Dak throws for 400 in the season opener or $125, that it's only one of 17 games. The other take that I think you could certainly argue is the Minnesota Vikings going to the Super Bowl with JJ McCarthy. Now, as a Vikings fan myself, I did have their team ceiling as the NFC Championship game in the 2025 team preview, but with the improvements they made along the trenches, which was a big pitfall for them in the 2024 regular season finale against the Lions, and then the wild card round against the Rams, they addressed every hole they had. So if you believe that, I wouldn't necessarily blame you heading into 2025. But that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed. Please drop your 2025 bold predictions below, and like and subscribe if you enjoyed. And until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.